see, let's review your name and where you were born.
Jodi Hull, and I was born in Garden Grove, California. Well, my dad taught me a lot of great things. Always buy good shoes, and he was a police officer, so there were a lot of rules that I remember. Things like taking out the trash and being good, and to not make mistakes. If you made mistakes, there was going to be some penalties for that. But on the good side of that, my parents taught me to always go to church and to be kind to my siblings, to take care of them, and to be a good sister. They taught me how to ride a bike, and I learned a lot of life lessons from watching them. Some good morals I learned from them. Like I said, stay close to your family, respect your country, love your country. I learned how to love God and found my faith through my wonderful grandparents and great-grandparents, and of course my parents. My grandfather was the pastor at the church that we went to, and my mom and dad both sang in the choir. And so watching them stand up in church every Sunday was a big deal. Seeing them and learning what they, the things they taught me about faith and God, and again, respect for the people that had gone before me and the trials and the sacrifices they had made to get us to where we are today. My grandparents, my mom's parents, like I said, my mom's dad was the pastor of our church, and so watching him stand up at the pulpit every Sunday and sitting with my grandma in the front, or maybe the second or third row of the church, and just everything that went along with that, the ministry he had and the ministry she had, and watching them sing in the choir and pray. I watched him baptize people and pray for people. And then my dad's parents, my grandmother, my dad's mom, was a big Republican in Ohio, so she was very political and very passionate about her faith and her beliefs, and was in a sorority actually that she passed down to my sister and me. We were legacy members in the sorority she was in. We ended up not either of us going to college, so we didn't get to take any part of that, but when I was in 6th grade, we got to go back to Ohio, and they did this whole ceremony, and they inducted us into this sorority as legacy members. My grandfather, my dad's dad, I didn't know very well, but just a good, strong man, tried to do his best and loved his family. I wasn't as close to them as I was my mom's parents, so probably have more stories about them. Well, I of course wanted to be an actress, obviously. And my grandmother said, no, you don't really want to do that. I made my siblings play school a lot, so I did always have that kind of teaching mentality and loved to play school. But I think deep down I wanted to be an actress or a musician. Obviously, we liked dressing up and playing in our band. I had a band with my siblings as well when we were little. And so I don't know, both sides of it, the creative side and the educational side. I feel like have always been part of who I am from a very young age. I wanted to be a teacher, but I didn't realize until I was in high school. And really I was going for I'll just be a preschool teacher. I didn't want to teach older kids. So it's definitely something that early on. But I think maybe all older siblings make their younger siblings play school. I mean, that's what I always did. Well, of course, going to church was a huge part of my childhood. We went every Sunday. After church, we would go to Mama and Dado's house. That was my grandma and grandpa. And so after church, we would go to their house. We'd have a big meal, and everybody would be there. And then after the meal, we would take a nap. At some point, they got a jacuzzi in their backyard, which we thought was incredible. So we would get to play in the jacuzzi in the hot summer months. And so church was a big deal. Wednesday nights, we always went to church as well. My dad worked in an area close to where my grandma lived, so he would come to my grandma's house after work. And again, we would have a meal together. We would go to church, and then they would have choir practice. We did every activity. My friends would tell you probably that I didn't get to do anything outside of church all through high school. If it was summer, I was at church. If it was a weekend, I was doing something at church. If it was holiday, we were doing something at church. So it was a huge part of our life. Every year over Memorial Day, we got to go to family camp in Palomar Mountains, and that was the greatest thing ever. We got to stay in this lodge and do different activities up there but just being with my church friends and my parents and their friends. It's just where we spent most of our life. And then the summers we occasionally would go to Ohio. We took the train to Ohio because that's where my dad's family was. We took the train, we would drive to Ohio. Road trips were awesome, driving through the states, Arizona and Texas, Oklahoma. We drove through all of those states multiple times. No seatbelts, of course, in the back of the Datsun. No air conditioning either. Great memories of my cousins in Ohio. They were on the swim team, so we got to be at the pool, catching lightning bugs when we go to Tennessee and Kentucky. My Aunt Louise had a beautiful house in Louisville, and just a beautiful, old Kentucky home with the big backyard and the food and the family and all of that. Just great, great memories. The first instrument I played was piano. My mom insisted we take piano lessons, and one of the ladies in our church was a concert pianist. She played at Carnegie Hall and just was this wonderful artist. And so I would go to her house on Wednesday after school before church, and she would do piano lessons. And again, I did that for a while, and then my brother was born. I think that was, again, just one of those shifts in my life where it wasn't as easy to get me to those places anymore. So I did piano, and then when I was in 6th grade, my sister and I both took piano, and so we were taking piano again, but it didn't last for very long. But the thing I remember about taking it in 6th grade is that we were actually playing like some contemporary things. So it got me kind of my ear for music, where I could kind of plunk things out on the piano, and I could figure out how to play them by ear. And so having that songbook to remind me I could play some things that were on the radio was kind of cool. So and we always had a piano at our house. As far as I remember, and of course my grandma had a piano, so there was always a song that I was playing in my head that I would want to go play on the piano. So there was always a moment where I would, if I was bored, it was before we had, Netflix and phones and, anything. So if you weren't listening to your radio and there was something on TV, sometimes I would just wander over to the piano and just try to start playing something. There was oftentimes, music in the piano bench, so I would just see if I could play something. And, there were a few songs that I learned how to play all the chords to. And then when I got to junior high, I was in choir in 7th grade, and all my friends were in band. And I remember there was a concert at Christmas or at the end of the year, and I remember sitting there and, we got to sing songs from like West Side Story and Sound of Music, and it was so awesome. But then the band got on there to play, and they blew me away. I had chills up my arms, and my friends, of course, were all in band. So I told my mom after 7th grade ended, I said, I want to be in band and I want to play flute, because my best friend played flute. And so she got me a flute and got me some private lessons. And when 8th grade started, because I hadn't played in the band in 7th grade, I had to start out in beginning band. So I had to play, for the band director, and he put a piece in front of me and I played the whole thing, and he said, oh, you already know how to do this. So he brought me right right up to advanced band. But again, I was at the end, I was the last chair because nobody knew what I could do. But I ended up making it up to first chair for a couple weeks. It was really hard though, very competitive because everybody played back then. So then we moved and I started at San Clemente High School. And again, I couldn't be in the advanced band because I hadn't been in the junior high kind of feeder program, so they didn't really know what I could do. So, and I didn't know anybody. I didn't know the band director. I didn't have any friends in band. So I started out in last chair and ended up moving up to first chair. And I probably kept that for a couple years. But every week, they would do a test, to see if you could, stay at first chair. And if someone wanted to challenge you because they thought they were better, then there could be a challenge. But it was in front of the whole band. So there were some times, people caught me off guard and I hadn't been practicing and they played part of that song better than I did and I lost my seat. But it didn't, it was a lot. It was very, very competitive and you had to practice a lot. So in high school I stayed in band till senior year, and by then all my friends had quit. So second semester of my senior year I stopped taking band. I did marching band freshman, sophomore, and junior year, which I loved. You can make all the jokes you want about marching band, but it was so great. Being on the football field, before the football game, you got to play the Star Spangled Banner, and man, that was exciting. Being out there and just having everybody standing up, listening to you play that, that song. And then during the football games, like we would play all the fight songs, and it was so great to be part of that. And then of course we did like field competitions and things that we would practice for, and we would be in parades on the weekends and stuff. We got to play at Disneyland, got to march down Main Street a couple times. That was fun. And I just love the way that it would all come together. You practice, and then that music would just all come together, and it was so exciting, so great. So Landmark walks you through kind of the things in your life where you had some events in your life that may have been negative or maybe stuck with you in some way, and maybe led you into different places in your life where maybe you messed up in a relationship, or maybe you started doing something that maybe you shouldn't have done, but you can kind of go back to those events in your childhood that changed you. And maybe you need to clean some things up. Maybe you have some people in your life you need to get right with, And so Landmark kind of got me in a conversation with people where I could, have a conversation with you that doesn't go bad, maybe, or I can argue with you, and maybe it doesn't turn ugly. We argue about something, and then we both listen to each other. It's really about listening and understanding and hearing what people have to say rather than making a quick judgment. I already think I know who you are based on what I know about you or what you look like. I'm going to actually sit and listen to you. And of course, you get up in front of everyone in that room and you say, here's what I got to say. And for me, it was my relationship with my dad. I felt like I had disappointed him, and I felt like I hadn't really been as respectful as I should have. And I blamed him for all the things a teenage girl, blames their parents for. So at one point during that Landmark weekend, I called my dad and just apologized for being a brat and for being, for maybe not saying the things I should have said, that I loved him and that I appreciated him and that I thanked him for being the man he was and for taking care of our family. I don't know if it was Landmark. I think it was the Landmark Forum because I did the advanced course the next year. but I actually had to they make you make a phone call by the end of the weekend. They say you make your phone call, you better do it before that last night, and they give you lots of time and lots of opportunities. And must have been the advanced course that I ended up calling Sammy, and telling him. He actually thought that I had been in a car accident and I was on my deathbed. That's the kind of conversation this was, and it was just a message. I didn't talk to him, I left a message for him. And it was basically saying, I apologized for my failures and my shortcomings. I apologized to him for whatever it was. I don't know all the words I used, but then I thanked him for being a good father and for being a man I could count on. And I just asked him to forgive me for not being the person I wish I had been. And at the end of it, I said, the past is in the past. We are letting it go. We're leaving anything that was done is over, and we're putting it down and we're moving forward. And he thought I was calling to say goodbye, that I was dying. That's how it shifted for him. Let it go. Really, just you gotta let it go and move on. And I'm sure I'm forgetting a bunch of landmark things that I use all the time, but I can tell you it was a very difficult time in my life when I was 17 in college, found out I was pregnant, and I had a lot of outside people telling me what to do. And it wasn't what I knew in my heart was right, and I knew it wasn't something I was going to do. So I had a lot of people telling me what to do, and I couldn't tell my parents what was going on because I was just so ashamed of what I had done, and I didn't know what to do. I was literally backed into a dark corner of my life where I was so alone, and I felt like everyone wanted to take my child away from me. And I said, well, you're not doing that. I don't know what my life is going to be like, but I know this child is not leaving my body. And I had a lot of bad thoughts. One night, I was all by myself. My mom was working. My mom and dad had just gotten divorced. My brother and sister were gone, and I was all alone. My friends had kind of rejected me because I wasn't doing what they thought that was right, for me. They thought I was ruining my life by continuing this pregnancy, and they really abandoned me. They walked away from me. A lot of my friends said, I don't even want to hang out with you. You're ruining everything. And I said, well, that's fine. I'm not going to change my mind. And I had a moment with a bottle of Tylenol and a big cup of water, and I said, maybe this is best for everybody. I won't embarrass my family. I won't let my friends down. And voice of God said, stop. Put that down. I got this. You don't have to worry about any of this. I take care of you. I watch over you. And this baby is going to be blessed beyond measure. And I didn't have the answers, but I knew at that moment he was real, and he was saying, I got this. You don't have to worry about anything. And I didn't. I didn't have any answers, but that voice and that promise has changed my life that day, because I said, everyone kept asking me, what are you going to do? I don't know. But with a smile on my face, I said, I know who holds the future, and that's all it took for me. So definitely that moment kind of changed the trajectory in my life, where I could have taken my life, sadly, because I was so desperate and so alone and so scared. And I didn't, and I've been blessed beyond measure, and that child has been as well. And I can tell you that God's not done yet, and He promised me that, and He reminds me every day. I keep my promises every day. He reminds me of that, and and that shook, that faith was solidified at that moment, and it's pretty unshakable now. I get rattled and I get scared, and there's definitely some moments where I'm afraid, but unshakable since then. I got the chance to, go to Saddleback Church before I moved to Arizona, and Rick Warren is just an amazing speaker, an amazing writer, and I got to be baptized at that church before I moved to Arizona, and many countless moments of wonderful moments at Saddleback. I had some good moments probably in high school where we would go. They would have youth conventions every 2 years at our church, and we'd get to go to different parts. We got to go to Kansas City in 1984, and in 1986 the convention was in Long Beach, and we were in Garden Grove, so we were considered one of the host churches. And so my friend and I got to give the the welcome to this whole kind of arena of youth from around the country. So that was fun. I don't know how spiritual we were. We went up there with bare feet and didn't really know what we were going to say, but definitely God has had his hand in everything in my life, and has blessed me and protected me in times where I had no business even being here. So my Anthony and Jesse and Morgan are the love of my life, the three of them. And I'm so grateful and thankful to the blessing that they've been in my life and in the world. And I'm thankful for their gifts, and I can't wait to see the things that they will do. I hope that all three of them will stay close to each other, close to God, and whatever they do it for Him. And baby June, I can't even imagine the great things she's going to do. But I do believe her generation is going to be inspired and will be a generation that will maybe be called one of the greatest generations. Not that my children's generation isn't, because I think you guys are the thinkers and the makers and the ones who will come up with the good ideas. But baby June's generation will go out and do it. The things you guys are doing, the things you're making and inventing today. I hope she stays close to God. I hope she does some great things. I can't even imagine what she's gonna do. I think she'll be just as creative and talented as her parents. I'm grateful to all the people that the family members that I still get to call my family. Brandon and his family have been so wonderful and generous with me and with my kids and baby June. And my parents, obviously, I wish everybody lived close by, but I'm thankful that all my parents are still around and that we all still get to be together. I'm thankful for Dottie and her love for you guys and for her great-granddaughter, and thankful for all the people that are gone ahead of us, Frank, and just the wonderful people that didn't realize how much they were inspiring us. And I hope that my kids know how loved they are and what a gift they have been given of living here and in this time of their life, of time in history, and how important it is to stand up for what is right, for what is good, and for this family and for our country. I just don't want them to ever forget that this was bought with a huge price, and that we should not let it slip away. I just want everyone to remember how to fight hard and to not be afraid to stand up for what's right. I hope that I can do that. I promised to, my kids that I would do that. So I hope that I can live a long life and make everybody crazy. I loved watching my kids perform and play sports. I got a lot of enjoyment out of that. I still think about, going to basketball games and football games and hockey games. I got a lot of enjoyment out of that. And I just want my kids to always remember how much I loved sitting up there. It was hard to get to the hockey games and see my son sitting in the penalty box with his third penalty, and it was only the first period. But I loved that fire about him, and I loved the fact that he could, hit that puck so hard he would knock people out sometimes. He got penalized for that a couple times. I think he got suspended for that. I loved watching Jessie take a charge and not be afraid to knock people down. I loved watching her shoot threes and having the crowd go crazy. And I loved Morgan, watching Morgan out there, listening to him study the plays and talk about the other team and talk about what he's going to do when he gets out on the field. I loved his excitement for putting on the uniform and being part of the team. I really loved that part of my younger life and my kids' lives. I really, I miss it sometimes, but then I see other parents going through, things like their kid's hurt or their kid didn't get to play or the coach isn't being fair, and then I don't really miss it that much. But I do, those memories are some of the best memories. And of course, my childhood, being with my brother and sister, I didn't play sports, they did. So it was another thing that was really important to me, that my kids were able to dabble in music, but it was really important that they played sports because I didn't. And I love sports, and I still to this day do, but I'm so glad that they did that. It really wrecked their bodies, but I'm glad that my kids got to learn how to be on a team, that they got to learn how to play games and play by the rules. And it was an incredible joy to watch my kids play sports and perform musically. I'm just so proud and thankful for all of your gifts, because I just get to enjoy them now.